دایی یه فرصت خوب حالا پشت مدافع خداداد عزیزی توی دروازه گل برای ایران خداداد عزیزی باز هم روی زمین گشت سرداران بود و توی دروازه بود گل به نام آزمون و برای ایران
بزنه کریم انصاری گل توی دروازه کریم انصاری دروازه پرتغال باز شد
علی دایی صاحب توپ توی دروازه
اشتباه حرکت از کوچان نژاد فرصت برای کوچان نژاد توی دروازه گل برای ایران.
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of Bezan. My name's Sina. I'm really glad to be back on this episode of Bezan. I'm joined by Arya and Babak this episode, and we're going to be talking about the Iran-Cambodia game as well as the upcoming Iran-Iraq game. That's going to be the big one. Tuesday, 15th of June. Pretty much a must win. We can draw. I think we can also lose, but we need to basically win it. But we'll talk about that later in the episode. So before I jump in, Babak, Arya, how you both doing?
Good to be here, Sina. It's been a long time, and it's good to join you guys on the back of a big win.
Yeah, listen, it's great to have Babak back as well on the podcast. It's been a while. I know you always say that whenever you're on the podcast, but obviously it has been. So it's good to have you back. And obviously, Sina, you missed the last one, so glad to have you back on the podcast too. And yeah, big win. Let's go to Iraq.
Yeah, I mean, it was a huge win. Obviously, 10-0. I think the last time we played them was a similar sort of scoreline. It's not too surprising. I think we said in the preview as well. Like, I think our prediction. I think I said anything less than sort of 8-0 would be a bit of a failure for us. If a clean sheet as well is needed. But before we jump into the Cambodia game, I want to quickly give a thank you to everyone for helping us reach 4,000 Twitter followers. And as a thank you, we're giving away a free Sadr Azmoun Team Melli jersey on Instagram with our partners at Iran.jersey. And you have until after the Iraq game to enter. So all the instructions will be on our Instagram and Twitter. So be sure to get involved. It's a really good giveaway. Arya, is there any way that we can sign up for it? Because I kind of want it as well.
I mean, listen, you have to be someone that's not part of the podcast. But listen, it's a Adidas jersey. It's something that we wanted to do for a long time, and hopefully we can give you guys a jersey this coming week.
Yeah, for sure. And here's to the next 1,000, 5,000, hopefully 10,000 in the future. We'll be doing more of these giveaways, hopefully in the future. As we grow. So thank you so much for your support once again, and let's get on with the episode. So quickly, let's talk about the Cambodia game. So obviously we started with the 4-3-3, probably our strongest lineup, I'd say. Like I was really happy with our lineup. It was like Skocic was not really holding anything back, and obviously there was a few substitutes throughout the game. Everyone kind of, I think there was like 8 different goal scorers. So I think quickly, like Arya, what did you kind of make of the game as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, look, the lineup that came out, we were very surprised about that kind of lineup because we were expecting to see players like Daniel Esmailifar, Jafar Salmani, players like Mehdi Ghayedi, all these guys to start because ultimately Cambodia 10-0, it shows that they're not a particularly strong side. I think they've only scored like 2 goals in the whole in this group stage in this group, so they're not a good side at all. And ultimately, Iran would beat them regardless of who played. I was surprised not to see players like Ansari Farin cover as well, but lucky Skocic, that no one got injured. Very lucky because the pitch looked a bit wet. There was a couple of hard tackles by the Cambodian players. Obviously they gave away 2 penalties, so they were getting stuck in. They were getting tackles in, and we got lucky not to get any injuries. We already missed Mahdi for the Iraq game, and I feel like Skocic really wanted to prove a point, which I don't know if it was necessary at this point because, look, yes, we haven't had friendlies, and that could be the reason why he played all these players because he wants them to be playing as many games as possible because they haven't prepared properly. And that's a fair point. He's a coach. He needs to get his players ready. He wants to make sure that his best team is always fresh and match fit. Absolutely fair point. But was it needed against Cambodia? We've already played 2 games. Not entirely sure. So, look, we got through it. And 10-0. So I'm happy with the result.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you. I think the only critique I would say is I think Ghayedi should have probably started. I think this was probably the game that he should have started. And with Skocic's lineup, yeah, you're probably right. He wanted to send a message, or he was kind of like trying to play on the mentality aspect, because in the previous games against Hong Kong and maybe Bahrain, you could say the creativity was a bit, lackluster. It wasn't really there. Maybe he was trying to do this to kind of get some confidence amongst the players to, go into the Iraq game with, full of confidence. But at the same time, it could backfire, right? Like they could say, oh, we beat Cambodia 10-0. We're amazing. And they could go into it like with, being too cocky. So I don't know. It could go both ways. I don't really know how mentally they'll challenge it. But I think, Babak, it'd be really good to get your take on, I guess, what sort of, I guess, messages, like what would Skocic kind of change from going into the Iraq game from this game against Cambodia?
I think he wanted to give a couple of players a chance to build fitness. Players like poor Ali Ganji, who missed earlier game, maybe try out Milad again after he was hauled off at halftime. Milad had a good game. I thought he was one of the bright spots, actually. And on central midfield with Amiri out, I think it was an audition for Ezatullahi and Quddus over who, because I do not think both of them would start. I think Hajsef, we'll talk about it later, but I think it's going to be one or the other. So there were a few questions he wanted to put out. I was surprised about the lineup as well. I didn't expect to see Taremi, for example. I didn't think we needed to risk him. I expected to see Majid Hosseini in defense. I was quite disappointed not to. But overall, I think probably some of the players did answer Skocic. And in terms of a result, we can't ask for more. In terms of the right players scoring goals, we couldn't ask for more. In terms of the performance, difficult to really judge it, to be honest with you.
I'll tell you the one thing that kind of worried me from the Cambodia game. Yes, we won 10-0. Yes, we got the 3 points. It's all good from there, from the statistics point of view. But when I actually watched the game, it was clear that we were getting a lot more chances than, I guess, the 10 goals represents. We could have easily got like 15, 16, right? Obviously, there was the missed penalty as well. Like, yeah, that's what's the worrying aspect for me is, will we be able to take these chances? Because there'll be, the chances will come in way fewer in the Iraq game, right? Like, so that's one worrying aspect in the back of my mind. I don't know if you agree with me, Arya.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that, because I think that ultimately we did create, I would say we created more chances than the first Cambodia game, if I'm honest with you. I think we did a lot more going forward in this game. That could be down to the fact that players like Quddus started, Javanbakhsh, Golriz, there's more creativity. The finishing product, there could have been a lot more goals, and you're right. And a few of the goals came from assists, came from set pieces. I think 2 of the goals came from penalties. One of them was an own goal. Only a few came from open play. So looking at that, really against Cambodia, we should be scoring a lot of goals from open play, and we didn't. Cover as well. He missed a lot of chances in the second. I know he scored 2 goals, and fair play to him. He hit the bar with a free kick. He did get his own back. He didn't just hide in a shell. He did try and score some more goals. So that's good to see from him. But yeah, open play. We weren't finishing chances. Javanbakhsh was very highly unimpressive in this game, in my opinion. I wasn't impressed with him at all, to be honest. I just didn't like the way he played. I know he got the assist. I know he scored a penalty, but just not enough from him. He needs to do more. He's got so much talent, but he doesn't do it enough. He's too timid. It's Cambodia. Come on, like, you're a Premier League player. There should be a walk in the park for you. But I don't think he's got the confidence right now. And then the same goes for players like Khalilzadeh, making mistakes in defense against Cambodia, almost giving a goal away. Babak saying that Majid should have started. When Majid Hosseini came on in the second half, he was absolutely brilliant. Like, honestly, for the goal that Milad Mohammadi scored, he set it up, to Ghayedi and then threw ball to Milad Mohammadi to score. It was brilliant performance from Majid. And I'm a big fan of him because I feel like his build-up play is probably one of the best out of all the centre backs that we have, including Ali Ganji. So I think he needs to start. I don't think Cannon is better than him. I don't think Khalilzadeh is so good to the point where you need to bench him. You need to bench a guy who's playing in Europe for him. I don't agree with that. So yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you about Alireza Javanbakhsh. I thought like he didn't strike me as a Premier League player. He didn't strike me as a Premier League player at all. He was given like his touches were off. His vision wasn't really there. Like he was a bit selfish at times when he could have probably passed it a bit earlier. He really needs to step up. I know he's the captain now. Like he gets the captain's armband quite frequently. I want to see more from him because he's such a good player, and I feel like we've forgotten that he was, the top goal scorer in the Eredivisie. Like what was it, 3 years ago now? It was like that was fairly recent. I just feel like I expect a lot more from him, for sure. Like Babak, I'd love to get your take before we move on to assess the Iraq game more. Which kind of players would you say? Because a lot of players came on as substitutes, obviously made an impact. Kaveh Rezaei was probably one of them. He hit the bar like from a free kick, I think it was, and then like obviously scored twice. Do you kind of see some of the substitutes giving Skocic a headache for the selection in the next game?
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have to make a point on Javanbakhsh first. I thought he was one of the first players who was hungry to do something. Not that it was working out, but for the first 15, 20 minutes, I think he was the one taking the game. He was making direct runs. He looked like he was up for it. It wasn't always coming off for him, but I thought that he was, let's say, he wanted to prove something. Did he have enough quality at the end of what he did? No, he didn't. That has been the case for most of his career at Team Melli, unfortunately. In terms of players, Majid as well. Yes, I agree with Arya. Like he is. How many two-footed players do we have who's comfortable on the ball behind? He plays on the left side. He's just as good with his left as he's with his right. He was building it up quite calmly and distributing the ball. So I was surprised that he didn't start the game really. And okay, at least he got 45 minutes. I don't think it's enough for him to break through into the lineup. I don't think from the back line anyone other than Moharami starts, but I think Moharami starts, but Mohammadi might just have played himself into the lineup. In terms of midfield, I was again impressed with Quddus. He looks comfortable in that. I don't know if you call it a 8 or a 10. He looks comfortable there in the creative role, and he's giving good output. His passes are really good. He's giving a lot of defense-splitting passes to the forwards. Izzatullah was okay, I thought. All right, not wow, but he was okay. From the top, obviously Taremi starts. I can't see anyone else breaking through. And off the bench, you mentioned Kaveh. Not sure. He missed a few sitters at the beginning, and then he made up for it. But I don't think there was anything promising there to say that, he's going to break through the lineup. But ID, he was the most impressive player for me. Yes, it's against Cambodia, and the players are pretty much his size. That probably gave him a little advantage. Of course, he can do it against better opposition. I think he's going to be a joker off the bench. I hope we don't need him, but I think it's, if we're going to throw someone on to try to change the way the game is going for us, if it's not working, then he would be up there with number 1 and number 2, who I would bring on.
Yeah. Just quickly on Ghayedi, I think it's important that we just touch on him because Ghayedi, for me, everyone's really excited about him, rightly so. He's a very talented player, very quick, very skillful. A lot of people want him to start matches for Iran. Now, in my opinion, he could definitely play from the beginning for Iran. There's no doubt about it. I just don't think he right now needs to start for Iran. I don't think there's a necessity for a player like him to start, especially when we need to win games. We need to guarantee that we don't concede goals. Golriz for me is a must start, no doubt about it. And I think Quddus has kind of proven it in the last couple of games that he should be starting in the midfield. And that doesn't really give Ghayedi a chance to play because then you have Taremi and Osman. So ultimately, I think Ghayedi, like Babak said, is an absolutely fantastic option off the bench. Remember, guys, in football, you can make substitutes. Okay, I think everyone forgets that. And like literally, whenever a lineup comes out, oh, this guy's not going to play ever again in his life. He'll play. He'll come on off the bench and he'll make a big impact. And I think Ghayedi is a fantastic off the bench player for Iran. It's tactically a great idea to have him on the bench because he brings the speed and the skill when players are fatigued. And a lot of times when you start a player like Ghayedi, he'll fade towards the end of the game. And you don't want that. You want him to be fresh when the rest are tired. So he's a great player off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, you could say a similar story of Golriz a few years ago. Like he had the same thing. He was a bench player, came on, made a huge impact, and people were calling him for him to start. And obviously, as he's improved his stamina, his fitness, and he's moved clubs, he's kind of cemented himself as a first team player. So I think probably you're right, Arya. I think Ghayedi would probably have a similar trajectory there, because he definitely has the quality for sure. That's like no one's disagreeing with that. But as an impact sub, I don't think we have a better player for sure. So I think before we move on, let's just get a fan reaction from Bijan Timjani, our editor Samson's dad, before we move on.
So I'm joined by Bijan Timjani, former high school club and shortly semi-pro head coach for roughly 33 years. So first and foremost, I appreciate taking the time to come. Obviously, you are our editor's father, Samson. Thanks for coming on. I want to ask you regarding the Iran versus Iraq game. What do you see happening on Tuesday?
Well, looking at the game, I think more like a European team rather than the West Asian team. Our complexity, our passing structure, our tactics really reminds me of a pretty decent European team. One thing we cannot do is hesitation on touches and passes. With some of the times that part of the game, I think probably most of the first half or some of the first half against the last game, we were kind of hesitating on passes. You cannot afford doing that to a team like Iraq. You got to let the touches go. You got to be quick, and you got to be quick to react. I like the way the team plays. I love the way Salman plays on the right wing, if he plays that position, because I think he's more dangerous. I love Ghayedi. I used to have a player like him, a Mexican player, one of the years that I was coaching in high school. He's got a great future ahead of him. He just has to be properly taken care of, and he definitely need to go to Europe. But he's gonna be outstanding future for Iran's team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a lot of talented players that can cause a lot of problems for Iraq on Tuesday. What are your predictions for the match?
Well, if we play the way we're capable of and continue the way we've finished against Bahrain, I mean, I could see Iran winning 2-0 or something like that. We have to be much more intelligent in defense. We have to be careful about the way we protect the ball coming from behind, and make sure that our passes are the right location, and we don't hesitate on distributing the ball over there. And we need to make sure that we have a solid, 4-back or 4-5 back over there for the counterattacks. I think we can take care of Iraq if we maintain the kind of intensity, the kind of touches, the kind of passes we were doing, like the second half and part of the first half against the Bahrain.
Absolutely, we hope to see that. I hope that we can get a result that takes us through to the next round of the qualifiers. Thanks for coming on, and hopefully we win.
I hope so, definitely.
All right, let's preview the Iran versus Iraq game. So obviously this is a huge game for us. I think it's the difference between us finishing first or finishing second. It's absolutely massive. Iraq's been pretty good during this campaign. I can't take that away from them. They've been decent. So Babak, I'll start with you. How important is this game for Iran? Obviously, we talked about the Bahrain game being massively important. How important is this game?
So I think the Bahrain game was just an appetizer to get a chance to have the main course against Iraq. We needed the win to make this game worth something for us. So it's a do or die game, no question about it. The most important game we've had in years. I know we say this quite often, but it's true, because not getting the right result would mean we get out of the road to the World Cup 2022. And to lose out in the first round would be humiliating, embarrassing, and disappointing, especially considering this is probably the best bunch of players. I mean, we say this quite often, but I mean, we don't want Azmoun to miss out on the World Cup at the age of 27, or Taremi at 29, or Zadrzadeh in his mid-20s, or Qudus at 28. So we have some key players, or Saeed in his mid-20s, key players probably playing to the peak of their powers, especially Sardar and Taremi, our best strike force in years. So it's very, very important.
Yeah, I'd fully agree. But at the same time, like I know it might be a bit controversial, but I completely agree where the if we don't qualify, it'll be a massive waste of talent. I think Pejman also said that the last episode I was on, because this is like pretty much I'd say like our best lineup for a number of years. But if we don't qualify, I want to go out and say, like, frankly, we don't deserve to, because like our performances haven't been great. And whether you put that down to the team or the chemistry or the manager, I won't be surprised if that makes sense.
Well, that's absolutely true. If we don't qualify, no one to blame but ourselves. And that's a combination of everyone you just mentioned, from the coaches to the federation who chose the coaches, to the players who, of course, have to take some responsibility. I mean, we want to put it on the doorstep of the coaches, but at the end of the day, the players are international players. Many of them are playing in Europe, so you expect better level of performances. What happens from one day being able to pass 3 balls in a row between yourselves under Queiroz, to not forgetting how to pass the ball a meter or 2 meters away from yourself under Wilmot? So it's things that are unanswerable, really. But let's not get into a forensics thing of it right now, and we'll look forward to the game.
Yeah, of course. So Arya, let's go into the lineup. So
yeah,
how do you kind of see the lineup? Obviously, we have to play our best team. This game is vital for us to qualify. So
yeah,
quickly, how do you kind of see the lineup? Do you see it similar to the Cambodia game? How do you kind of see it panning out?
Well, I mean, look, first of all, I think Bezan is in goals, no doubt about it. I don't think that Allahverdi is a great goalkeeper. Allahverdi, nothing wrong with him at all as a goalkeeper, but Bezan is number one, right? That's a fact. In the last game against Iraq, we played Shojai. Massive mistake. Like huge gaps left in midfield because he couldn't run. So we need energy. Iraq is a very physical team with a lot of energy. Players that will, like Safa Hadi and Bashar Rassan. He might be injured, so we'll keep an eye on him. But players like Humam Tariq, so really high energy, fast players who will really put themselves about. So Iran need, to be on the ball. We can't afford to give Iraqi players time and space to counter attack and cause us issues. Vahid Amiri is a big miss. The back four for me, Moharami's had a good couple of games for Iran. I think he's been really impressive, especially against Bahrain, where I thought he had his best game for Iran. The 2 centre backs, Purali Ganji for me has to start. However, I do feel like Skocic is going to stick with his 2 favourites, Kanani and Khalilzadeh. For me, would be, I don't mind Khalilzadeh starting because he's an experienced centre back, but for me, Purali Ganji has to start. Left back, I think Babak is correct in saying that Milad may have bought himself a place into the starting lineup, but you don't be surprised to see how Safi play at left back in this game, because he did move there in the Bahrain game and he was a bit better than he was in midfield. And then possibly, if that does happen, you could see the midfield 3 that we saw against Cambodia. That's the only way that we'll see it. If Milad isn't starting and Safi goes to left back, then we could see Izzatullah, Nurallahi and Qudus. Otherwise, I think Milad, if he is playing, I think Izzatullahi will probably be benched with Ahmad going to defensive midfield position, which I think is a complete mistake. For me, Ahmad Nurulahi, I've said this a million times, he is not a defensive midfielder. There's no doubt about it. He doesn't play like a defensive midfielder either. He's not got that kind of calmness about his game. He's a very much a box-to-box player. So I don't want to see him play there, but I just feel like he's played him there so many times, Skocic, that if he might actually do it again. Godus from Yas start. You know, it would be absolutely ridiculous if he doesn't play. It would be absolutely ridiculous at this point, because he's been a game changer for us in his last couple of games. And in the front three, there's no doubt about it. Zadeh, Taremi and Osman. I don't see Javanbakhsh starting, unfortunately. Ghayedi off the bench for sure in this game. Massive sub against Iraq, could be huge in the second half to bring on Mehdi Ghayedi to give us a little bit more of a push. Maybe bring him on for maybe Zadeh if he starts to tire out a little bit, or even bring him on for maybe even Osman and Taremi. You know, if we're already winning the game, or if we're not winning the game, bring him on for like one of the midfielders. So a lot of options with Ghayedi to bring him on. Torabi as well. He's been quite impressive. I'd like to see him come on at some point. But look, Iran need to win this game. You know, they can't afford to go and be timid at all. Like the first game against Iraq, we had a horrible game. Shojaei was playing. We had a really horrible midfield, problems in midfield all over the place. In this game, we can't afford to do that. So if we play the right team, I don't see why we don't win the game. I just don't see it. I think people are being negative because we haven't been great under Skocic performance-wise. Yes, we've got a lot of good results, but performance-wise, however, I think we should be winning this game.
Yeah, no, I agree with your lineup. Sure. Yeah, what's your take, Babak?
Yeah, I agree with almost everything Arya said. The Mohammadi paradox, like if Mohammadi starts left back, Hossefi starting in central midfield, that breaks up the three that we saw against Cambodia. That's what I was going for as well, because Hossefi is going to start. He rested him completely. He's keeping him fit, probably to take over from Amiri's role. That's my hunch. But almost every other position, I think, yeah, it's probably likely he won't break up the centre back too. I'm not so convinced. We were exposed against Hong Kong in moments of or lapses of concentration. And against Bahrain, okay, they didn't have the quality, and they were probably a little bit shocked from the way we took the game to them in a few minutes when we scored multiple goals. I do disagree on the last point that Arya said. If we play the right lineup, we're going to beat Iraq, or there's no reason why we wouldn't. I don't think it's about the lineup. I think it's about the performance. It's about the tactics. It's about the players buying into it. And I haven't yet seen a good performance. And I'm not talking about brilliant moments in between where Taremi and Osman link, because that's instinct. They know each other very well. They enjoy playing with each other very well. And then you see Zadeh, for example, having a good game against one of them. And then there are players that stood out in every game. But I'm really talking about good passing to come through, intricate passing, breaking down the opponents. And Ghayedi probably gave us a lot of that in the second half against Cambodia. But generally, I haven't yet seen that level of performance. So we have to perform well. There is nothing that is guaranteed against Iraq. Iraq is a good team. Yes, they didn't play well against Hong Kong. They scraped through a 1-0 win. And even the game before, they haven't really stepped it up. But we can't, this is a big derby for the Iraqi players, the Iraqi people, probably more for them than for us. Probably, yeah. To a degree, it could be the same feeling that we have when we play against Bahrain. Don't underestimate how the Iraqis feel when they come up against Iran. So we have to really perform well, and I hope we can get the right result.
My big hesitation here is that with Kanani playing, he's been a player that, I mean, especially against Bahrain, when he kind of like, when the pressure's on, he does lunge into tackles. He does kind of lose his head. He lunges to a tackle at the halfway line from like a slide tackle from behind, risking a red card. He got a yellow card in the end. And it's like those sort of players. I feel like with Iraq, where tensions are already quite high, there's a lot of like, chips on the table with this game. I'm not confident with him at the back. We'll be like far more challenged with, playing against Iraq. They'll have more chances. And I feel like Kanani isn't the right person, isn't the right centre back to have there. I hope he proves me wrong. That's my take on the centre backs, is that I don't feel confident with him being there.
Predigan has to start. Simple as that. I mean, the guy's been to a World Cup, 2 Asian Cups. He's been our best centre back for the last 5-6 years. He has to start. I don't think Skocic is stupid. I think he knows that who his best players are. And I understand that, okay, he's got Golriz with him on the bench, and maybe he's, giving him a few words in the ear, okay, let's play some of the Persian players. But Kanani isn't that good, man. Like, I know he's been decent for Iran over the last couple of years, and he's been quite good for Persian. But are you really trying to tell me he's better than Praliganji?
I would have played Kanani ahead of Sadrzadeh for what it's worth personally. So if I had to choose between the two, I would take Kanani anyway. We're talking about Kanani now, but Sadrzadeh is 33 years old, 32 years old. So I'm not convinced by him at all. I think our 2 best centre backs are on the bench right now.
Yeah, I think Majid is. It's probably down to the fact that he hasn't played for Trabzonspor. And look, if that's your reason why, as a coach, for me, it's a little bit poor in my opinion, because.
Yeah, but Arya Bayram doesn't play for.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree.
There are many cases.
Absolutely,
there are many cases. Javanbakhsh barely played except for the last month of the season when it was worth nothing. Obviously, he's not a regular starter for us, but I mean, it's not enough. It's not enough. No,
definitely. I don't agree with it. I don't think that Majid has actually played that little. He hasn't been playing that little. He has actually played a decent amount in 2021. So for him not to start at all for the national team against Cambodia, that's a big question mark. As a selector of players, you need to be able to be fair with it. Why did Khalid play the last game? I just don't get it. I just don't understand. Well, as
Arya, you could have hinted at it with the Persepolis connection. I mean, I'm not saying it's Allahverdi. I'm just saying that there's clearly a little switch here towards. I'm not saying they're discarding the foreign-based players, but there was a wish in those around the national team to make some changes. Watching the setup of the broadcast for the match, they spent the first 10-15 minutes in the studio talking about how great Skocic is in terms of changing the mood. He's warmer than some other coaches. The Croats understand our culture, and everyone. It's great how the players are all good together and they take pictures and are smiling. They forget what kind of team atmosphere we had for the last 7-8 years with Kirosh. That was the best we've ever had.
Exactly.
I'm not saying the atmosphere is bad now. I'm just saying so there's clearly an agenda. New. Yeah. There's clearly an agenda to distinguish this tenure or the post-Kirosh years from what happened before. And one of the points was, if you remember, Kirosh was criticized for not giving some Persepolis players a chance, or some domestic players chances, which was especially at the big clubs, Esteghlal, Persepolis. So it could be to a degree. Some things could be a little bit imposed. I'm not saying specific players are said to be, they have to play, but you can't rule anything out.
Well, I mean, look at the squad, and I don't want to go on too much. We've already spoken about it, but I mean, Kamal Komyabinya was in the squad. Like, why?
Yeah, that was that.
Do you know what I mean?
Sense to me
like,
at all.
I just don't get the question is just why. I know the answer to it, but I'd like to hear the answer to it, because that's not a good enough answer just because I like Persepolis, because Persepolis have won the league like 3 times in a row, 4 times. No, that's not an answer. That doesn't mean anything. But unfortunately, it is for Skocic. But listen, I'm not criticizing him. And I think people will probably think I am. I'm not criticizing. I want to know that ultimately, as a national team head coach, do you go and say, I want to call up the players that are completely the best players And if that's the case, then why is Omid Ibrahim not in the squad? Because Omid Ibrahim had a
Arya,
much
you do
better
that.
season.
You do that when you're confident, when you have a strong personality and you're willing to take on anyone. You do that, and that's what Carlos Queiroz did. I don't want to go back into this Carlos Queiroz loving or anything like that, but I mean, for you to do exactly what you want in any profession, in any job, you have to stand up to those around you sometimes. And are you willing to do it, or are you just very, very happy to have that job and willing to put your head down and do it? So it's a question of personalities, and I don't blame Skocic. She was given a job which she probably never dreamed of. She's happy to be there. And if someone says, hey, by the way, it would be nice to see more players from Persepolis and Esteghlal to make the people happy in Iran and find the balance or whatever it is, he's going to say, okay, probably. Yeah? And I don't know. I'm just saying that when you try to analyze the situation, that's not out of the question.
Technical difficulties there for Babak. Okay, let's move on to the Iraq.
I think now is probably a good time to move to Hassanin Bilal from the Iraq Football Podcast to get his take on the match from the Iraq camp.
Okay, I'm joined by Hassanin Bilal from the Iraq Football Podcast. How you doing, man?
I'm really well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here and hopefully discuss what should be a very good game on Tuesday.
Yeah, first of all, I appreciate your time. Can you just give us a little bit about your own podcast? Obviously, because you're quite successful with it. What kind of things can people? How can you find you online, on your Twitter, whatever you're using?
Sure. So you could find my podcast on all the major podcast platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. It's the app of the Iraq Football Pod. Basically, I started as a project basically because I think Iran, you guys might find this quite similar. When you go on Google and you search for Iraq, Iran, things tend to be quite negative. And I wanted to kind of create a platform and a space where things are focused on football, things are focused on like positivity. And I wanted the kind of the Western audience, especially since my podcast is in English, my website, my social media pages are in English. I wanted the focus to be on things that are positive, that are outside of the political sphere. And so we started it that way. If you want to follow us, that would be great. You can find us on social media. The @ are always at Iraq Football Pod. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So yeah, if you want to ever get in touch, do feel free to do that.
Yeah, excellent. And also, I'll have an article that will be on your website. It'll be written by yourself regarding the match as well, my thoughts on the game. So just what's your, is it just iraqfootball.me?
Yeah, so iraqfootball.me for Middle East. Yeah, I think it'll be a great article.
Yeah. Okay, so on the game, just give me your thoughts on the game coming up, but also, up until now, Iraq's matches, how do you think they've kind of done? And going into this match, how do you think they'll be able to do?
It's a very difficult question to answer this, if I'm honest with you, because, if I told you that there's a team with a 19-game unbeaten run, you'd think that they're on fire and they're doing everything right. Iraq right now are on a 19-game unbeaten run, but there are so many question marks still present over Katanic, our manager, over some of our players, and just the way we've been playing in general. Our run goes back about 2 years. We've been doing fairly well, but unfortunately, I don't think the manager knows our best starting 11. It's quite an unbalanced squad in some sense, in terms of we've not quite figured out who our best attackers are. We have question marks over goalkeepers, our right back, etc. So it's not been good, and that's really been kind of highlighted within the last 2 games and even 2 friendlies before that. So before the 2 World Cup qualifiers where we played Hong Kong and Cambodia, we played Tajikistan and Nepal. We only managed to draw 0-0 with Tajikistan, although it was our kind of second squad. Nepal, we won 6-2, but we conceded sloppy goals, and we didn't look too convincing despite the 6 goals that we scored. Having said that, once more, it was a second string team. Now we've come into the Hong Kong and Cambodia games. We did have a full team, but we really failed to dominate Cambodia in the same way that, for example, Iran have in the 2 games that you guys have played them. I think you've scored something like a 24 goals.
That's right, yeah. 24.
Yeah, we won the first game 4-0, in the first qualifier, and this last one we only won 4-1. 3 of those goals came in the first half, and the second half we only managed to score the one in the dying seconds of the game. So it's not been a very dominant performance. It's not been a very creative attack, and that's when question marks started to really be flip. Then we played the Hong Kong game yesterday. We looked a lot better in terms of how we looked defensively. We looked like organised. We looked a strong unit. But the biggest issue Iraq have is when we play against teams like Hong Kong, where they play as a low block, and we really struggle to break down that defence. So Hong Kong played about 10 players behind the ball at all times, 2 lines of defence and midfield, and we struggled to really find a way to break down the bus. Essentially, we tried to play narrow as opposed to wide, which we did against Cambodia. It didn't really work. Our best player was Bashar and Safat. Unfortunately for us, though, is that Bashar came off the pitch with an injury. I'm hearing that he's actually fit for the Iran game. I'm hoping that's the case. If that isn't the case, then we might actually have a serious problem on our hands.
Because he's obviously, he speaks Farsi. He knows the players, and most of the team, at least most of the domestic players in the Iran squad are from Persian police. So, he knows the players, he knows the sort of system. And even the assistant manager for Iran is Ghayedi, who was his coach at Persian. So there's a lot of connection that he knows. So he's very important to Iraq for this game specifically.
I think you're correct. Obviously, he played in the Iranian league. He dominated there for some time. He had a very good career there. But I think it's more than just for the Iran game. I think if you watch Iraq over the last 2 years, Katanich has really built the team around Bashar. He's the only real creative outlet that we have in terms of creating chances, beating plays, etc. Without him, there's a big gap that needs to be filled in. Yesterday, Hassan Ali came on from the bench to replace Bashar, and there's nowhere near the same influence on the pitch in terms of creativity, flair, etc. So if he doesn't play against Iran, Bashar, that is, I think Iran have a very, very good chance of winning the game. And I think Iran are a very good team anyway.
Just aside from Bashar, obviously, I know you guys have some good players as well, like Muhammad Ali and Homar Tariq, Ali Adnan, all these kind of players who have played at a decent level. One of the players that you're missing, though, that I've noticed is Rashid, who played, I think he was in the Turkish league this season, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What happened to him? Is he just not part of the squad, or is there like an injury there?
I don't know how it is with Iranian football, but with Iraqi football, unfortunately, there's so much politics involved in terms of like who gets called up, who doesn't. You'll notice in this current squad that there are no real expats present. Iran, right. As a country, you guys seem to be much more welcoming of players that go abroad.
I think we've kind of had to become welcome, because I think over a period of time we've noticed the Iranian league doesn't produce the standard of player that we want. I think the foreign-based players have become a good chunk of the squad. That's where the quality comes from. So for sure, we have to. I think we've almost accepted it now that the foreign-based players are the players you build your team around. It's a shame that Iraq haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, I think if we haven't come to terms with that, then if Iran have come to accept that this is the problem. And by the way, I say this, the Iranian league is 1,000,000 times stronger than the Iraqi league. I'm honest and upfront in that. But our FA, our fans, I don't know who it is, but we still haven't come to terms with this problem. And a lot of the expat players have not been chosen. This squad right now contains no expat players. The last few squads that we were chosen for World Cup qualifiers, the only player chosen was one defender called Rabin Sulaka, and he's not even included this time because of
plays in Bulgaria. Is that right?
So his contract in Bulgaria finished. He's now on his way to an Asian league. I can't reveal just who yet, but okay. The country required him to quarantine meaning he had to miss this current batch of qualifiers, unfortunately. But yeah, the problem there is that there's no Osama Rashid, there's no Jilwan, there's no Justin Miram, there's no Ahmed Yassin, amongst many other expat footballers. So it's a big
loss. So what's your prediction for the match? I know you've said that you think Iran will be the stronger side, but what's your actual prediction?
It's a tough one. I mean, based on form, I reckon Iran should win comfortably. But the good thing for us is that when it comes to games like Iraq-Iran, it's not really about form. It's about who turns up on the day, who wants it more. And as much quality that Iran have, I think Iraq still do stand a chance. I'm hoping for maybe a 1-1 or a 0-0. If we could get a draw, finish top, we'll probably both go through. It's good for you guys, it's good for us, but I think it will be quite a stretch seeing us beat you guys, especially with our form and your form. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think hopefully that, for us, hopefully we do win the game. But look, I mean, Iraq, they beat us the last time. We need to show that everyone's been rating us very highly, that it's for a reason. So Iraq will try to prove us wrong, prove that them beating us the first time wasn't just a fluke. So we'll see how it goes.
We're quite on a good stretch. So the last 4 times we've played you guys, we've beat you 3 times, we've drawn 1. So we are confident, and it's like I said, when it's Iraq versus Iran, we always have a chance because our players do want it. It's a huge game for us. And our players tend to turn up. Whether they turn up this time or not, I don't know. We've played a lot of games recently. In the last 2 weeks, we've played about 4 games. Hopefully, they're not too tired, but it's going to be interesting. What are your predictions then?
Oh, you'll need to be on the podcast. You'll need to be on the podcast to listen to it. We'll speak about that on the actual pod.
I'll make sure to tune in for that.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I know we're doing a bit of a long one here, but what's your prediction for Iraq's qualification then overall to the World Cup?
As in, do I think we're going to qualify?
Yeah.
If I'm honest with you, it depends on 2 things. I think if we can beat you guys on Tuesday and you guys don't qualify, I know that's bad for you lot, but I think that's a huge result for Iraq. Because if we go into the next round and we actually find some form again, there's only so many teams that I think are significantly better than Iraq. We're talking about the likes of Australia, Japan, South Korea. I think we can beat teams like Qatar. I think we can beat Saudi. But usually it's the 4 spots that go to the Asian teams. I think if Iran aren't in contention for one of those spots, we have a great chance. So
there's a lot to go on this game, isn't there?
100%. I mean, I'd like to just see us qualify, but if I'm honest with you, just for our World Cup chances, if we can knock you guys out early, that would be a huge result for us. But having said that, can I see on current form, can I see Iraq making it to the World Cup? If I'm honest, no, not really.
I think, as you said, they have to go in and look for these foreign-based players.
We don't need to look for them. We have them. We just don't
have them. Bring them in.
Yeah,
so
exactly. We have so many qualities all across
absolutely.
The world.
Excellent. Listen, I appreciate your time. Hopefully we can have you on for the post-match game.
Looking forward to it, and I'm also excited to share the article that we wrote together. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. Check out the website, iraqfootball.me, Twitter at iraqfootballpod, and we'll speak to you very soon. Take care.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So we talked about the lineup. We talked about the tactics that Scottish should maybe implement during this game. We talked about the gravity of the game and how important it is for Iran for qualification. Now let's get into the predictions, the exciting part. So Arya, I'll start with you. What do you kind of predict the game? What do you plan to predict to happen? And of course, like what score do you think would happen?
Yeah. No, I think we'll win the game. I believe the national team at this point in time is in a good place. The Iraqi team looked very poor against Hong Kong. I'm not looking too much into it. I'm just looking at what went on these past couple of weeks. For me, the Iraqi team look poor. They're missing a lot of players. As Hassanain said, they are missing a lot of their players that play in, foreign clubs. Like Meram and who else? Rashid. There's a lot of players that are missing. So I don't think they're as strong as they were 2 years ago. And I think Iran are stronger than they were 2 years ago. So I think we'll win 2-1. I do see us conceding a goal based on the fact that if we're going to play with the midfield three of Haisafi, Nurullahi and Quddus, I don't see players with high levels of energy. I think Nurullahi is the only one who gives you that. But if you play him in the middle, that kind of nullifies his energy because he has to be kind of the deepest player. So I just don't think we're going to be that successful in midfield with the likes of Safa Hadi and possibly Bashar Ressan playing. So I don't know. I just see us winning it, but I feel a very tense game coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a tense game. Personally, I think it'll be a 1-1 draw. Will that be enough? I don't know. It depends on a lot of other permutations. It's going to be tight. Depends on how Iraq see it. Are they going to start the game off looking for a draw, hitting us on the counter? What will Scottish do? Is he going to look for the win from the first minute? Or are we going to have like a real stalemate going into halftime or 60 minutes? It's not clear. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a game of chess probably. No one wants to lose. It's clear because both think that a draw could be enough. So that's going to have an impact psychologically. We have quality players. Azmoun, Taremi, definitely. I mean, Mohamed Ali up front for Iraq is also a quality striker, but we have two players who've been scoring 40, 50 goals in Europe last season between them at the highest level, including Europe. So if they get a chance, maybe not one chance, if they get a couple of chances, you expect them to take one. So I'm going to be chewing my nails for sure.
Yeah, I think it'll be probably a 2-1 victory. I think we're pretty good at set pieces. I think that's where the goal will come from. Especially if Saman Goudas starts. He's our set piece guy. His delivery is probably the best out of all the teams. So if he starts, I feel like we could probably score from a set piece, which would be really good. So Arya, correct me if I'm wrong, but this game, just to give clarity to everyone that's listening, if we win, we're pretty much guaranteed qualification to the next round as well, by the way, not qualification to the World Cup. And if we draw, it's dependent on what the results in the other groups. And I know that we had something on our Twitter, like a breakdown of the different situations. So we can't go through each one of them now, but if you are interested, do go on our Twitter. We have got a post about that.
Yeah, Payam sent us over his mathematical analysis of the group standings. So, yeah, I believe off the top of my head, if we draw, then what would happen is we would need to have South Korea beating Lebanon, and Australia would need to beat or maybe even draw with Jordan. So those are likely to happen. And also maybe even Saudi Arabia beating Uzbekistan. So I could see them happen. I think South Korea beats Lebanon, and I think Australia probably beats or draws with Jordan. So I don't really see having much issue if we finish second place. But come on, man. First place, got to do it.
Yeah, no, fully agree. Well, if you are interested, everyone listening, you can go to our Twitter. We have got a breakdown of every situation. If we win, if we draw, I think we have one if we lose as well, what happens in the next round. So I think that's it for the Iraq game. I think let's move on to the fan questions.
A lot of the questions that we got, we kind of answered it within our own discussion. We had some questions regarding Kanani starting. That was from Javid Azadi Iran. We had one from the midfield. Who do you think should play in midfield? About Ehsan Haisafi. We had one from Ehsan Haisafi from Instagram, Nima NIIMZ _ asks, just regarding Son, obviously he wasn't part of the squad against Cambodia. I don't know if Babak would agree with me or Sina. I don't think he should be starting. For me, I think he's been absolutely terrible for us. Being honest with you, I don't think he's been the kind of guy that you look to as a captain, performance-wise anyway, and even leadership-wise. I don't really see him as a captain. You know, I even in the changing room, like Taremi is the guy taking the team talk. Like, come on, like whose responsibility is that? You know, you wouldn't see, for example, even like Masoud Shojai, he would take the team talk, you know, because he's a real captain. You know, even though he wasn't the best player towards the end of his career, still did the captain's responsibility. I don't see it from Safi. I think he's not a captain player kind of type. So if he starts, he starts. For me, he shouldn't. Don't know what you guys think.
I think if he does start, I prefer him to start left back, if I'm completely honest. But even then, I don't really want him there. I'd rather Mahdi, to be quite honest. But I mean, yeah, he's a player that's been pretty popular with managers. For whatever reason, maybe it is the experience, maybe it's the level-headedness, maybe there are some other things behind the scenes that we probably don't see, Arya. Like Taremi did take the team talk on video, but maybe there was another team talk before that we didn't see. So you don't know, like, so yeah, he might see himself in the squad either way. Like, I'm not complaining too much. I'd rather not see him, but yeah, that's my take on it.
That question was also given to us on Persian football.com as well. Did you have anything to say about that regarding Safi?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about his leadership qualities. I mean, it's not enough just to say if he takes team talks or not or whatever. We don't know what happens, but that's not enough anyway. Even if he's the best leader, his performance levels are not good enough. Not in central midfield, not in left back. I actually don't think he's a left back, and I don't think he's a central midfielder. So where does he fit? I don't know. He runs a lot. He looks like he gives 100%. I don't doubt that, but it's not good enough. So he's a poor man's Robbie Savage for me.
Can we clip that, please? That is very funny.
That's a very funny one. Other question comes from Kamran at @CamToTheAns_. He asks, which back four gives us the best chance of keeping a clean sheet? For me, the back four that we should be playing going forward, you know, I don't know if Scottish agrees with it or not. I think goalkeeper Bijan Van, Moharami, I've been very impressed with him over the last couple of seasons. Purali Ganji, Majid Hosseini, and I still trust in Mohammadi. I still think he's a good left back. I know, yeah, he's had a tough couple of months, but he's still, in my opinion, the best left back we have.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Majid Hosseini still hasn't convinced me. I know you really like him, Arya, but for me, I don't know. I know in the next few years, like it's definitely like he's on that trajectory to be a top player, and he will probably be our number 2, maybe even number 1 centre back. But for me, he's not convinced me yet. I still think he makes the odd mistake, and for a centre back, that's vital. You have to kick those out of your game. So yeah, I think for me right now, Khalizadeh just has to take the place, and then Majid Hosseini will probably fill in the next year or so. I think for the World Cup, he will definitely be ready. Okay, cool. So thank you so much for your fan questions. Well, let's wrap it up there. So special thanks also to Metrica Stats for providing us with English statistics on Team Melli matches. And obviously, if you stay to the very end, we've got a new outro track from Kidmo. Special thanks to them for providing that. That's really nice. Also, don't forget about our Team Melli jersey giveaway that we said at the beginning of the episode. So thank you so much for the 4,000 followers, and that's our thank you to you. All the instructions will be on our Instagram and Twitter, so follow us while you're there as well. Also, you can find our episodes on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, and all other podcast platforms. And yeah, you can visit our website as well, golbazanpodcast.com. So that's it from me. Thank you so much, Arya and Babak, for joining me. Quickly, if you are interested in entrepreneurship podcasts, I run my own podcast called The Millennial Entrepreneur. Do check it out as well. So thanks again for joining me on the Golbazan podcast. Let's sign off there. Thanks, Arya. Thanks, Babak. Cheers. We'll see you guys for the next podcast after the Iraq game.
Thanks for having me on again. Apologies if anyone heard someone crying in the background. Let's hope there are no Iranians crying after the game on Tuesday.
That's a very good save. Also, don't forget the Twitter Spaces we'll do before and after the game. I know you guys love them. So we'll also be doing that before the Iraq game, which is on the 15th of June. Don't forget. All right, cool. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll see you after the Iraq game.
میفرسته توپو برگشتش حالا قدوس بوم 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 آتش بازی پایان نداره برای پسران ایرانی.